Hi everyone, welcome to my tutorial about Hyrule Castle from The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I've seen a little bit of success on my channel, mainly thanks to this particular arrangement. It gathers, on average, 10 times more views than anything else I do. So when I hit the 30 Patreons mark and I did a poll among my Patreons about which video they'd like to see a tutorial of, this one was the largest to be voted about. So it's not a surprise, but I'd still love to talk to you about it. So obviously this tutorial was brought to you by my patrons. Yeah, they're supporting me for $1 or $5 or somewhere in between per month. And they get a handy archive with all the PDF files of audio arrangements I've made thus far, and also MIDI files for every arrangement, so they can load that into Synthesia and then rehearse it the way they want to. So thanks to all my patrons, many thanks to you guys. So let's get started. Hyrule Castle is a weird piece, in a way. It has a irregular meter, but it has a regular meter irregularly, which means that sometimes it's got 5 counts in a bar and sometimes it has 6 counts in a bar. And especially when you look at the first few measures of the piece, it's 5 counts per measure all the way through. So So before you start practicing something like this, it's really paramount that you first get the feel right. So you know in what kind of feel the piece is supposed to be. So in this case, it's a 5 beat per measure feel. And the 5 beats are, in this particular case, divided into a group of 3 counts and a group of 2 counts. So the feel is as follows: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So a group of 3 and a group of 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, etc. So get that feel right. That's going to help a lot. If you have the feel, you don't have to really think about counting anymore. So get it into your body first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we go to the main theme, which then does something amazing, which is switch to a measure of 6 counts for 1 measure. So you have to be really aware of what happens. So I'll play it again, starting from measure 9, which is the start of the main theme. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. So keep it in mind. It's a piece that over the course starts to become more and more in a 6 beat per measure feel, but it starts out really as a 5 beats per measure feel. So my recommendation would be get the feel right. So, for example, put the video on, the original Hyrule Castle video from the game or my piano arrangement, read along with the sheet music or read along with the Synthesia, and really try to count along, get the counts right first. And then you can start practicing the notes. So one more thing on this first page, that's something to keep in mind, is when you come out of the starting riff, the theme actually starts a little bit before the start of the 9th measure. So you're coming out of the riff in measure 8. Da, 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 and then the melody immediately starts. So try if you can bring that to the front. So you riffing, 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 melody, etc. Make a good contrast between the riffing and the melody parts of that first page. One other thing to keep in mind is there's a really weird scale going on in the 16th measure, and that's this little riff. It's really a characteristic riff of this particular piece, and it will appear again in a different key later on. And that scale is more or less used in the entire game for stuff that's Calamity Ganon related. So a weird scale that really makes you feel a bit uncomfortable. It's a combination of a minor scale and a whole tone scale, and it switches between those at about the halfway point. So you start out just playing a regular G minor add 2 chord, so like this. Which is quite standard. And then you add a whole tone scale, a part of a whole tone scale in which you play only whole tone intervals, so no half steps. So an entire whole tone scale would go like this. It's kind of a flashback music, like we're going back 20 years. So you're pasting, so to say, a little bit of this whole tone scale on top of the minor scale. One, two, three, four, five. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So that's that particular riff, and then the right hand in the 18th measure tags along for a little while, and it will play this. So in this hand too, it plays first a G minor add 2 chord, and then adds the whole tone scale on top of it. It's a really nice run. So there's multiple ways you can practice this. A general tip when you want to practice something is make a short chunk that's tripping you up and practice that over and over again. So if this entire run is annoying to you, I'd recommend chopping it in 2 like this. The first half of that annoying chunk is only that G minor add 2 chord. You can even play the right hand part along. And if that's feeling comfortable to you, you can try adding the whole tone scale on top of it. Alright, we're moving on to the second page. And the second page is really where things get started with this. I made a small mistake somewhere, you probably noticed. This is the main theme of this piece in full force with the entire left-hand accompaniment. So the left-hand accompaniment you're playing has something in common with the minor scale, whole tone scale hybrid we just practiced. But then it's only the minor scale half. So again, if this is tripping you up because you have to move your hand, just practice this little nugget until that's feeling comfortable to you. The rest of the accompaniment has a lot in common with that as well. So the entire upper structure of the arpeggio is unchanged. Then in the 22nd measure, it lowers down further to a C minor at 2 chord. And then a strange thing happens, which is in the 22nd measure, when suddenly there's a strange rhythmical thing going on. So playing that entire accompaniment, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So that strange little riff in the middle is really important for the drive of the piece. And as you can see, it has starts with a single low note, then 2 high notes, and 2 low notes, and a single high note. Low, high, high, low, low, high, low, high, high, low, low, high. 2, 3. Okay, so let's see this entire part in the context of the piece. The melody sometimes comes in just a tiny bit after the first beat of the measure, by which I mean it starts 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So the melody note in the 21st measure comes in late. 1, 2, 3, 1. And the lowest 2 notes you play are part of the harmony, so the upper note should stick out here. And there again, in the 23rd measure, where the melody comes in late. as you can see, the right hand only comes in there at the second eighth note of the left hand. So which is nice and dramatic. Yes, it is. In the 24th measure, it happens again. So. And there we have the minor whole tone hybrid again at the ending of that chorus. So two things to keep in mind here. It can really trip you up. And then if you start adding the right hand, try to keep in mind that the melody comes in late sometimes. Thing about this piece is that if something is tripping you up, it isn't a piece that has to be really tight and groovy. It's more of an atmospheric piece. So if something is tripping me up, this piece gives the room to just add a little bit more time to get the fingers at the right place. So for example, something I already did just now was I'm slightly exaggerating right now, but just a little bit of breathing room sometimes, if you need it, is entirely okay. It can even add a little bit to the tension of the piece. The second half of that second page is the classic Ocarina of Time lullaby, but in a kind of a weird form. So the Zelda's lullaby part is actually three parts at the same time. So obviously there's the ostinato playing in the right hand. So obviously one part is that ostinato in the right hand, which is reminiscent of the start of the piece. The other is the melody in the left hand. Is modified obviously compared to the original. And then the third part is the bass. So those three parts combine. And the left hand is obviously the most tricky. So you have to jump around all the time. So there is actually quite a bit of space to jump around, which is nice. So there's enough time, which gives you a little bit of room to try and make the melody note stand out in that left hand. It's in the top of the chord the entire time. So really try to make that top note in the chord stand out. By effectively playing it harder than the rest of the chord, which is really tricky. It's something you can practice by playing a chord and then trying to make another note in the chord stand out. Now I have the middle note standing out, and the lowest note, now the highest note. It's tricky, but it's something you can practice, and it really makes the melody extra clear. All the notes for the right hand are more or less the same the entire duration of that second page, from measures 29 until 34, and then only in measure 35 it changes, and then it changes back, and it stays the same until 37 when we're going back to the melody. So it's something, once you have it, you don't have to think about it. The only thing you have to think about is when does this particular motif change, and only then you have to spend any brain time changing it. The rest of the time you can just focus on the rhythm and the left hand. And the right hand can be entirely on autopilot. So we've just had the Zelda's Lullaby part of the piece, and now we're going back to full-on Hyrule Castle epicness. So this is a reprise of the theme we had earlier, or a repeat actually, would be a bit early for a reprise. But it's arranged a bit differently, because this is when the orchestra has really kicked in the original, and I wanted to convey some of that power to the piano. The bass plays a repeating rhythm for a few measures. So this is why your knowledge of the meter, of the amount of counts in every bar, comes in handy again. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, etc. So then there's the trumpet line, which is in the right hand at measure 38. So there's a melody. So again, there's a delayed note here in the melody every time. And there's also the trumpet line, which alternates in the right hand between the melody. So, ta-da-dum, ta-da-dum, ta-da-dum. That's it, actually. The trumpet line is a really quick little thing. which is something you mostly get from the wrist. So you can't really, if you do it with your fingers, it becomes really stressful. So you essentially just have it at the ready, the right position of the fingers, and then it's just moving the entire hand. But the most difficult part, for me at least, of the entire piece comes right now. And that's the ending of this third page. This is all standard fare, right? This is once more the hybrid scale we used earlier, but now it's in C minor instead of G minor. But then comes the hard part. At least for me, this is this is really difficult. So the right hand doesn't really change at all. It just goes up another octave, and it plays that hybrid we've been playing this entire time, a few times. The left hand then jumps, goes all the way here. That theme, but it plays it in two voices, and for some reason, I've never really managed to get it in tempo right. Okay, this is so lucky. This is lucky. It's really annoying, but it's also really cool. It sounds awesome. So the ring finger is a really weak finger, right? So it's really hard to move it independently, and especially with runs like this, when it sees a lot of action independently from the pinky and independently from the middle finger, which are the adjacent fingers. Oh, it really takes a bit of concentration. Right, so if this is giving you trouble, this run, it's probably because of the alternating ring finger stuff. So again, as I've recommended earlier, use a small chunk and just repeat it at a relaxed tempo and get it into your system. But it's called rehearsing because you have to do things over and over again. Right, and then we go back to the Sanyo, and the Sanyo is all the way back on the first page. Which is that part, right? I have to change the page. Okay, so I've more or less made it until here. The 28th measure, it says al coda. Oh, we're going forward actually to the 4th page. So then we come to the final 2 pages of the piece, which is the grand orchestral thing. first half of this fourth page is actually the new material, right? So the rest, until the end of this piece, we've already practiced. So the rhythm of the left hand here is something that's a point of interest. I'd say focus on the moments when the left and the right hand are together, which is a lot of the time. So those two notes at the end and one at the beginning are synchronized. This one is kind of tricky. That's a measure 50. So you're playing those octaves, and then you have to jump up and play a chord. There's the trumpets here again, right? In measure 52. Again here, just keep the fingers at the right position. And then let the hand and the arm do the work for you. Oh, rightio. Then there's some annoying jumps from measure 53 onward in the left hand. There's quite a bit of time to jump up and down, like previously in this piece, which is nice. And then measure 57 is the part where I tripped up majorly in the original video. Playing it really slowly. Right hand first, left hand takes over, right hand finish it. So the left hand has to move from all the way down, upward, so it can take over the arpeggio from the right hand, and then the right hand has to move downward to finish it. And again, practice this in small nuggets. That way it's most effective. Then we get the repeat. And that's it. So that's the entire piece. So wrapping up, a few things to keep in mind. First of all, the meter. Keep the meter in mind at all times. Know when it changes from a 5 to a 6 count measure, and make that really natural, so that's not something you have to think about. Another thing to keep in mind is the theme, so the hybrid whole tone and minor scale. If you've got that into your system, it'll make your life much easier. Keeping the melody at the front at measure 29 in the left hand. And trumpets in measure 38 from your wrist. That's about everything. Right, so thanks for watching. I hope you've learned something. I've helped you with rehearsing this piece. Questions, just leave them in the comments. If you haven't already and you want to support this channel, please like this video, subscribe to my channel. And if you want to be notified about the new videos I make, please, after subscribing, ring the bell. Because subscribing nowadays doesn't mean you get notified about new videos anymore. It just shows YouTube that you're interested in this kind of content. So if you like my arrangements, I recently did a Luigi's Mansion arrangement. I've done quite a few for Link's Awakening, and I'm sometimes still doing new Breath of the Wild stuff. Ring the bell and you will be notified about every video I make. If you want to influence what tutorial I make next, check out my Patreon page. If you're a patron, even for $1 per month, you can vote for the next tutorial as soon as I've reached 40 patrons, which is just 8 patrons away. And if you just want to support me or get access to MIDI files or every arrangement in a handy PDF archive, please consider supporting me. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.